On series has been brought to you through a collaboration of the state support teams and the Ohio College Tech Prep Regional Centers. You can find all the previous recordings and resources from our other sessions on the website that you utilized today, and that's shown on my screen. You can also, on this website, find the state support team members and the tech prep member regions and contact information by going to the More drop-down menu that's on this website. If you select regional maps for SST and tech prep regions, it'll bring you to this web page. On this web page, you can find all of the state support team regions. If you scroll down, you will also find the 6 tech prep regional centers. I do want to take a moment and thank all of our SST and our tech prep partners who've been instrumental in putting together this virtual series. I also want to thank all of our previous presenters and facilitators who have made this virtual series such a great success. I also want to thank all of you that are in attendance today. I also want to thank those of you who have been with us throughout the series. Again, on this website, you'll find the regional centers. If you go to the More drop-down menu, you'll also find contact information for each of our state support team members. I hope I'm not making you dizzy as I scroll through our state support team members. And then following that, you will also find our chief administrators from the 6 tech prep regional centers and their contact information. Additionally, on this website, you will find the recordings for each and every one of our sessions that began January 4th and culminating in today's session on May 8th. So at this time, without further ado, I'd like to take a moment to introduce Joshua Miller, Program Specialist from the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce, Office of Career and Technical Education. Josh, I'm going to let you take it away from here. I believe I've made you the co-host, and you should be able to go ahead and share your screen now. If not, I do have a copy of it and can bring that up for you.
Sounds good to me. Well, good morning, everyone. Again, I just want to echo, thank you, Pam. Thank you for the work that you have truly put into this. I believe that we have a good session going today, and I think we're going to have a good presentation. Can everyone see my screen okay?
Yes.
Perfect. So again, thank you to Pam. Thank you to all of the SST and all of the tech prep regions for making this series such a success. Today, we're going to talk about industry recognized credentials. I previously served as the program administrator for the industry recognized credentials. And I transitioned in October to serving as the education program specialist overseeing engineering and manufacturing. And until recently, I had still been overseeing the industry recognized credentials program. However, joining me on the call today is Connor Rigney. And Connor, I'll let you introduce yourself. Connor just started Monday as our program administrator for industry recognized credentials. I see that Connor is on the call. I'm not sure. Maybe he's still. Connor, you might still be muted. All right, we might just be having some technical difficulties there, but again, super excited to bring Connor on board. I've been serving as both roles for the past it's been what, Pam, 8 months, 7 months, and so we're excited to bring Connor on board. Pam asked me earlier if this is my final presentation. It's going to be one of the few, and so I'm excited to share this with all of you today. I've prepared an agenda for us. And so what this agenda really does is it's going to take you through those nuts and bolts of this program. It's going to take you through the information. And I think the reason that we've set up this presentation this way is, number one, the key to being successful in this program, the key to really understanding industry recognized credentials is to understand the different facets. It can be a complex program when looking at it from the outside, but I think once you get into it, it's really simple and it's really streamlined, and it can really help our students achieve those graduation requirements in a meaningful way and really gain access to some meaningful employment. As we're going forward, if you have any questions throughout the day, please don't hesitate to throw them in the chat. Please don't hesitate to unmute yourself if we're talking about something. We will have Q&A time at the end, but by no means do I want this just to be a 30 to 45-minute lecture. I am not a professor, and I know that I didn't love when my professors sat on Zoom calls or stood up in the front of the halls either and lectured at me. So if you have any questions or have any comments, please don't hesitate to unmute and ask them. So getting started, let's talk about what industry recognized credentials are. The first bullet point you're going to see up there is the Department of Labor's definition of an industry recognized credential. It is a verification of an individual's qualification or competence, and that's all well and good. However, it is not really tying to what credentials are in the state of Ohio. State of Ohio recognizes credentials in many different forms, including them in certifications, certificates, licenses, and yes, credentials themselves. And this includes state licensure. So when we see industry recognized credentials in the state of Ohio, we don't just mean the verbiage of credentials. We mean them in the sense that they encompass all of these different aspects that do take form as a qualification or display of competence. All of our credentials are third-party owned. And so what that means is the Department of Education and Workforce, we do not own any of the credentials. They are not ours. We are really the gatekeepers of the list. We are the managers of the list. We are the facilitators. We don't own any of the credentials, and therefore, because we don't own any of them, we don't put forth any additional requirements or testing on them. They are third-party owned, they're third-party verified. And so they get to control what those credentials are and what those requirements of them there are. Therefore, the last thing that I will mention is you'll see it when different states talk about their industry recognized credential programs. They'll call them certificate programs, they'll call them just credential programs. The real North Star for the department here is that with credentials, we need them to be industry recognized. We want them to be valued in our labor market, and we want them to help students gain meaningful employment. And so that's really why the program is titled that way. And that's really the definition or the outlook we take on credentials and what they are. Now, the next big thing that I think really helps everyone understand how this program works is the application process. So how do we get all of these different credentials that you see in these 11 different career fields? And I think we just did the master list. I want to say that there's over 500 unique credentials on there. And some are in multiple career fields. And so that makes it close to 700 or 800 different credentials. And so how did these credentials, certificate, licensures, how did they end up on this list? All of them, had to go through an application process, and that application process is done via SurveyMonkey. And you can find that link on our website, and I can share some links in the chat after this. But that application process is open year round. Okay, so that application process never gets shut down. It is open year round and is broken out into quarters. And so currently we are in a quarter where from March 1st to May 31st, if you apply, that would be the quarter that we would pull the applications and then review them. And then it's about a 12-week turnaround time. Now, the reason it's a 12-week turnaround time in this application process is because of the different aspects that go into making our decision. As you see on the bottom of the screen there's 4 different components. When the application quarter closes, so not the application itself, just the quarter closes, I would pull those applications, and the first thing that I would do is making sure that I get them onto a public-facing industry feedback survey. So all of the credentials, their names, and their vendors go onto a feedback survey to really determine to really get industry feedback. That way we understand, how does industry recognize these credentials? Do they value these credentials in the hiring process? And we'll talk a little bit more about that survey and how we use it on my next slide. And then the next thing that we bring in is some labor market research. And we use two different aspects of the labor market research. The first thing we use is a software called Lightcast. It used to be called MZ for any of those that are familiar. It's a job posting analytics website. And so the reason we use that is because we can take those credentials that have been applied for, or we can take the skills that those credentials verify or display, and really see how many job postings within that career field are being required of that this credential could help students display or help students really take advantage of. So how many job postings ask for that credential? How many job postings ask for the skills that this credential verifies? And that helps us pull that into the review report. Do I have a question?
We've been filling them up over here and they have not interested yet. So I'm going to assume they have not been over there yet. Nope, I don't think.
Josh, I think someone's not muted.
Yeah,
That's all.
no problem. Absolutely. And so the next piece of labor market research that we utilize is the Ohio Top Jobs List, which is created and managed by the Governor's Office of Workforce Transformation. And so one of the questions in the application process actually is finding a job that is, or finding a posting of a job or finding a job title that is related to that credential that is on the Ohio Top Jobs List. And so we would pull that job posting that you gave us, or one similar that we have determined is more representative of that credential. And we would pull that, and we use the starting salary, we use the median salary, we use the expected growth, we use the number of jobs in that, within that job title. And then we also use the anticipated yearly growth over the next year. And so we pull those two pieces of labor market research, we pull the feedback survey, and we create these review reports. These review reports are then utilized by our industry credential committee. Now, in case that's not enough information, we include another facet. We have our education program specialists provide feedback on any of the credentials that are applied within their career field. So the best example is I oversee the engineering and manufacturing career field. So eventually I would be receiving the applications from the engineering manufacturing career field from Connor, and I would provide any feedback that I know. Our program specialists and our consultants, they really serve as a voice between, they can really serve as a voice between schools and industry. We deal a lot with all of you, and it's so much fun. And that gives us a lot of exposure to so much of the different, happenings and the different growth in industry and a lot of the different names. And so sometimes we recognize credentials, sometimes we're able to provide meaningful feedback, and sometimes we don't know anything about them, and that's not necessarily a good or a bad thing, but it's just the reality. So we provide any feedback that an EPS can provide to also include that in the review report. Then ultimately, what you see here is all of this culmination, the feedback survey, the labor market research, any education program specialist feedback, all of that is compiled into a review report that is utilized by our industry recognized credential review committee, and making sure that they have the information to make an informed decision. Now, all of that is to say that really the decision lies with our committee. And our committee, we have the different organizations that are a part of our committee listed on our website. These folks have really been in industry. They work in industry still today. And we ask them to not only use the information, but to rely on their experience. Those committee members are valued members of their industry, and they really have that knowledge and expertise to make these decisions. And it's really, really helpful. So in case anyone's wondering, I can assure you that I am not sitting at my desk going, I like the name of this credential, I don't like the name of that credential, I like the name of this credential. That's not what's happening here. All of this different information is really being pulled in an efficient way to provide it to our industry experts and asking them, is this credential valued? Is this credential something that students should earn to gain access to meaningful employment? And if it is, ultimately, it would be decided that that credential should be added to our credential list. And so when a credential is added to our list, did I have a question? I don't think so. Okay, perfect. So when that credential is added to our list, there is something else that needs to be determined. All of you have probably seen credentials and you've probably seen a little point value next to them. And you're probably wondering, how did someone come up with this? And that's a very, very fair question. The point value determination is extremely important for, number one, the graduation requirements set forth in the state of Ohio. So if you're utilizing this program as part of graduation requirements, as part of that alternative pathway to graduation, your student must earn 12 points within the same career field. And so the point value determination really sets forth how many credentials a student might need to earn within that career field, or how many, what point value that single credential will be worth. And there's multiple factors that go into determining a point value. The start, I guess, our starting point is really when I tie it back to that industry feedback survey. So that feedback survey, each credential receives 2 questions. The first question is asking a member of that industry, asking a member of that career field, do you recognize this credential? If they recognize this credential, then they get taken to a second question. If they do not recognize the credential and they answer that, then they would get moved on to the next credential. But if they recognize the credential, they're going to get asked the second question. And that second question has 4 options. This credential shows only foundational skills. This credential would be nice for my employee to have. This credential is preferred for my employee to have. And this credential is required for my employee to have. Those 4 options are asking, in regards to a hiring practice, how valuable is this credential? And so when we look at that, we really help determine the start of making a point value determination. And the reason I say that is because if a credential is required for employment, then that is an entryway to meaningful employment at that industry partner. Clearly, that credential is valued so much that they require someone to have that credential in order to be employed. If it shows only foundational skills, then it might be a 1-point credential. If it gains access to meaningful employment, that's really where we start to see the 12 and the 9-point credentials. And so that's how I want you all to think of it. Point value determination is not based on time or rigor. I can assure you of that. It's really the access that it provides to meaningful employment. For example, my favorite example are the health credentials. It's so fun to look at them because it paints a really good picture of the 12 versus 1-point credentials. A CPR credential does not allow you to become a nurse, an STNA, or a phlebotomist, but it's an absolutely foundational skill to be used within the health career field. However, if an STNA credential is earned, that student can go be an STNA. If a phlebotomy credential is earned, that student can go be a phlebotomist. Those credentials, what we see here is a CPR is worth 1 point, demonstrating that foundational skill. And we see that the STNA, the phlebotomy tech, the medical assistant, those credentials are worth 12 points. So I really can't impress upon you all enough when you're starting to look at the program and you're wondering, why did this credential receive this point value? Really look at it in terms of access to meaningful employment. We look at our welding credentials. You can earn a welding credential and go be a welder. Those are our 12 and 9-point credentials. We look at Adobe certifications. Some of them are 4 points. A single Adobe certification does not gain you access to meaningful employment. However, if you create a portfolio of them, right? If you have Photoshop, Illustrator, Dreamweaver, you see all of a sudden, okay, those 3 or 4 credentials put together does get me to that 12 points because it builds that holistic skill set. And that's what we really see with our 3 and 4-point credentials. Is a single credential does not get you to access to meaningful employment. Even 2 credentials doesn't necessarily get for you. They are absolutely nice for your students to have, and they absolutely help build skills and develop skills and display skills. However, the portfolio of them, having multiple of them aligned to a specific goal in mind, is really what helps build that holistic skill set and what helps gain access to meaningful employment thereof. And our 6-point credentials, it's really showing, for example, I love our IT career field for these. You see a lot of CompTIAs being valued as 6-point credentials. It is absolutely necessary for cybersecurity professionals to have a cybersecurity certification, but it's also really foundational and important for them to have a hardware certification or have an inner workings of a computer. And therefore you can't get one without the other. You can't have meaningful access to employment without both. And so that's when you start to see the 6-point credentials. And I hope that kind of paints that picture of the difference between the point values, right? It's not based on time or rigor. So when we receive an application and one is 1,080 hours, but we really see that it doesn't gain access to meaningful employment, versus one that it takes 50 hours to get, but you can go work in that profession with that certification, then even the one that is 50 hours would be worth 12 points. And the one that does not gain meaningful access to employment, just because their curriculum is long, does not mean that it's going to be a 12-point credential. All right, so enough with the background information of the nuts and bolts of the program. What credentials can our student earn? And so what I would encourage you all to do, if you are divulging into this work, if you're really starting to dive in headfirst on earning credentials and having your students earn credentials, I would really recommend that you go to our industry recognized credentials page on the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce website and really look at the credentials they can earn. If you scroll on that web page, you'll see an icon that says career fields, and then this page right here will pop up. This page really allows us to determine, really shows you all of the credentials that are able to be earned within the 13 different career fields that are available in this program. Again, so if you're familiar with CTE, I know that there are 16 different career fields. Some of these are combined in here. And so you see that there are only 13 different career fields in regards to this program. And so you can scroll through here and really see the different credentials that can be earned. And you can really start to gauge, okay, this is what is required to be earned this credential. Do I have the facility for this? Do I have the equipment necessary? How can I gain those equipment? How can I, put forth installments? But this webpage, this landing is really helpful to understand, okay, what credentials are they referring to? How do I even know what's available? And so I think that's the first place to start when you're thinking about starting up a program, is what credentials can even be earned. And the nice thing is some students, and like myself, I changed my major twice when I was an undergrad, they don't know what they want to go pursue. They don't know what career field they want to go be in. And that is absolutely understandable and it's absolutely common. And by no means do we want this program to pigeonhole students to only pursue that career field moving forward for the rest of their career. We don't want that. And I think the really fun part and unique part about this program are there are some credentials that are available in all career fields. And I think these credentials can really provide a meaningful start to a student's exploration into credentials and exploration into their future work. There are the different credentials that you see on the screen. All of these are available within all of the career fields, and all of them are also what are known as multiple vendor credentials. And so when you're looking at starting credential programs, sometimes it's important when we're gauging student interest and student aptitude, and they're telling us, I'm not saying no to earning credential. I think that could be interesting, but I have no idea what career field I would want to pursue. Sometimes it's really helpful to start in this career field or in this section, in the ones that can be earned and utilized in all career fields. So if any of these are earned, it doesn't matter what credentials you eventually earn within a career field. It doesn't matter which ones you choose. These can be applied to that point value. And so they just keep stacking on. So it doesn't pigeonhole them at all to start with some of these or any of these certifications. I know a lot of students and a lot of schools like to start with our OSHA credentials, for example. That workplace safety is a strong foundational skill set that students are going to need to know. And sometimes it's extremely valuable, even if that student is going to work in an office and they're not going to work at a construction site or in a manufacturing site. Earning that OSHA certification can really help them understand what the workplace safety is and how that utilizes. And who knows, that could be a passion for them. So utilizing credentials in all career fields is really a fun place and a unique place to start. And then what I mentioned is there are multiple vendor credentials. And so what I mean by that is all of our other credentials, like I've said, are third-party owned. They are credentials owned by a specific vendor. All of these certifications that you see on the screen have multiple different vendors that offer them. And so the rule set forth by the Ohio legislature and the department is that any of these credentials can be earned by any reputable vendor. So what that means is if a reputable vendor, one that is actually offering this certification in the name of that certification, so it can't be offering Leadership Plus or Student Excellence, right? It needs to really say that it is a Leadership Excellence program and have that title or the Lean Six Sigma title. And so it's really important that I think we have
absolutely.
it's really, really important that when we're utilizing these credentials, that we look at making sure the vendor that we're choosing to utilize is a reputable vendor, is one that is offering that specific certification, not one similar to it. And the next thing a lot of people ask me is there a list of these reputable vendors? No, there is not a list, and there will not be a list created. I can assure you of that. And the reason for that, and I'll just be fully transparent, is if a list were to be created by the department and leave off a reputable vendor, we could be in trouble. We could face ourselves obviously dealing with some upset stakeholders and upset industry partners because they are a vendor of this certification. So obviously at the risk of missing one, and that that culpability, we make sure that we don't actually create a list of all the reputable vendors. However, what we can do is verify. So if you all do a quick Google search and see that, this is the vendor that I want to use for my OSHA credentials, you can send me, you can send Connor, you can send the industry recognized credentials email asking, hey, can I utilize this vendor as a reputable vendor for the certification? And we can give you the thumbs up or thumbs down. Absolutely, we're happy to do that. We just can't necessarily provide all of the recommendations for fear that we are choosing one vendor over another. So with that being said, those are the different credentials that can be earned and kind of some inner workings of them. When we talk about implementing an industry recognized credential program, when we talk about what does it take, there are absolutely varying levels of resources, infrastructure, and time for each of these credentials. Not one credential is like the other. It's kind of like a Dr. Seuss book, right? When we think about it though, it's a fun puzzle piece to try to put together. Some of these credentials and a lot of these credentials can easily be earned with a laptop and a piece of paper. It can be earned, simply by going online and going through their different modules. Some of them absolutely require some hands-on and heavy equipment. A welding lab, for example, it's not easy to put in a welding lab. It is thousands of dollars and a lot of manpower in order to put one in. And so sometimes that might not be right. But the best thing to do when we're looking about starting IRC programs is really putting our key data points in mind first and up front. And those are really the three that you see at the bottom of the screen. Student interest. If we don't have student interest, if we don't have student aptitude kind of leading our way, being our North Star when implementing these IRC programs, then students might not be interested in these credentials, and students therefore might not be able to gain these credentials, or they may lack the motivation to gain them, which obviously, hinders their ability to use this towards alternative graduation requirements, but also can provide some really frustrating students and obviously instructors that really have worked hard to try to implement this. The next thing is, what in-demand occupation data do you all have within your region, within your local community? Really getting out there and saying, okay, what does my community need? All right, great. Now I know that. What does my region need? And then finally, if you want to go statewide level, what is the state's what are the really in-demand occupations in the state? And that can help you start and determine, okay, well, we need to start a health career field because we have 2 hospitals within our region. Both of them need employees really badly. Okay, we are manufacturing Beltway, and all of our manufacturers and all of our plants always tell us about how they need more employees. Great. That could be an opportunity to start a manufacturing career field and get buy-in from the community, therefore. And that really leads into employer buy-in. When you utilize their data and utilize their needs and the community's needs, it's so much easier to have them buy into this program and to have them buy into what you are trying to do here. And so I think as a final note of implementing IRC programs is, don't be discouraged when one credential costs thousands of dollars to implement, but another certification that does provide access to meaningful employment and holistic skill development might just take a laptop. it does take some digging and it does take some time to really figure out which of these credentials can start up right now today and which of these credentials have to be a long-term plan. And I think that can obviously be frustrating. And I know that all of you have so much on your plate already, but hopefully if you're really starting to consider implementing these programs, then by taking that time to really understand, all right, just because I can't earn this credential, that doesn't mean that there isn't another one out there. And this is the fun part of this job. This is the fun part of being a program administrator for industry recognized credentials, is that we can help you. And I would love to help you still. Connor will be loving to have you in the future. As fun as it is to sit and look at spreadsheets and administer the program and administer the list, it is even more fun when I get an email or phone call and get to come out to one of your districts and help you understand what credentials we can put forth in this space, what credentials we should really be looking at. That is the fun part of the job. And that is the part of the job, because we have the process a little bit more streamlined and effective, that I think we'll be really able to do moving forward. And so please, if you want help, we have many different program specialists. We have Dennis Haft in the Office of Graduate Success that can really help put forth these programs and help you understand, all right, this is what you can put in today. Here's kind of a long-term plan of what we might want to look at in the future. The next thing that I will talk about is the senior only credential program. So some of you may have heard this. The industry recognized credential program can be utilized by any district, by any school in the state of Ohio, and there's no application process to offer it. You simply just offer the credentials, and the student must meet the requirements set forth by that third-party credential, and they have to be reported, therefore, into EMIS. Now, a senior only
Josh, can I just
Yes.
interrupt you real quick as you move on into this section of senior only?
Yeah.
One real quick question was, is the term cross-cutting credentials an obsolete term? Or is this multi-vendor credential, is it a different concept?
You know, I'll be fully transparent here and say I never heard the term of cross-cutting credentials. Multi-vendor credentials are just those that these programs are taught and verified by so many different organizations that we have felt the need to not label them to just one organization. So I've never heard the term cross-cutting. So if someone who asked that question might want to unmute and ask it in a different way, but other than that, I don't know what that term means.
Well, I appreciate your insight. I think maybe that was a term that has been utilized in the past when maybe school districts have been communicating with some of the SST or maybe the Vintech prep people. But thank you for enlightening us, and we will continue to call them multi-vendor credentials.
So Josh, I can jump in. I'm
Yeah.
forwarding questions on, but I think it was in reference to credentials that can support in multiple fields, right?
Oh,
So like they
yeah,
cross
okay.
over into
yeah.
more than one area.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's a really good distinction there for me, because the multi-vendor credentials that I just pulled up are available in all career fields. Now, there certainly are those cross-pollinating, those cross-cutting credentials that might be available in engineering, manufacturing, and ag, but not available in all career fields. Those are still in our programs, and those are still on those different lists, and our master list really helps show that. But those are not the ones that are available with all career fields. So there are absolutely still cross-cutting certifications, and those all career fields can be used as cross-cutting certifications and credentials, because they can be utilized no matter what career field a student chooses to earn. Does that help?
Yes. So basically what I think I'm hearing that we can pass on is cross-cutting is some, the multi is all.
Correct. Absolutely. Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Julie, thanks for the question, and thanks for clarifying the difference between those two. And again, I guess just to give a better definition, Josh, it would be cross-cutting is those in multiple career fields, not all. And
Yep,
that's
absolutely.
and maybe that's even confusing when we talk about multiple vendor credentials. Those cross all career fields.
Yeah. And I think, just labeling them as, when we look at those credentials on that list that I showed you previously, those are the all career field credentials, right? They can be earned for multiple vendors, but those are the all career field credentials. The cross-credit credentials are those available in multiple different career fields or in more than one career field, but not all. So yeah, absolutely. And I that's just part of the program, and that's part of the fun when you get to that, career field list and can really look through all of our different credentials and be like, I swear I have seen that credential somewhere else. And you probably have, and it's because it applies to multiple career fields. So it's something that we strive ourselves on, because we don't necessarily want to pigeonhole students, and we want to make sure that they have the opportunity to earn credentials. Where they want to earn credentials, right? And what career field they want to be able to choose. So we try to have some of those cross-pollinating, those cross-cutting credentials. So then we will talk about senior only credential programs. So like I said, industry recognized credentials, the program itself can be utilized by any district, anyone, and it's really kind of straightforward. Senior only credential programs has a little bit of a twist to it. So senior only credential programs, it allows for a school to establish classroom time for credential specific instruction. So credentials themselves can be embedded into the classroom. However, that cannot be what that class is necessarily. A senior only credential program allows you to take a block of the day and be like, this is to earn this FANUC certification. And you can call it and label it FANUC 101 or whatever you might want to say. It can be utilized to earn that specific credential. That can be set aside for the seniors to earn that specific credential. Students in their senior year or junior status, if they're enrolled at a dropout and recovery program, they are the ones that can utilize this program. So that is why it is called a senior only credential program. When you start to look at implementing these in traditional schools or secondary schools, it is really important to note that it has to be their senior year or their senior status that allows them to utilize this program. This program also receives career technical education funding. And then also, in order to start this program up, you must have an approved CTE 26 application prior to starting the program. So it goes to the CTE 26 application. It's the ICO, so industry credential only application. And we go through and we work with you all to approve that application. And obviously all of your SSTs and your tech prep regions help you utilize that program as well, and help you guide through that application process. But it is a little bit of a twist. It's not quite the same as the traditional credential program. And so again, here's just kind of some quick bullet points of it. And I think it is a credential program, right? But it is a career tech supported and funded program that has to have an application process with it. So when you think about this, think senior only is really a career tech program that we approve. It can be offered at a traditional high school, whether you have career technical education started there or not. But traditional IRC program, it can be started anywhere. It doesn't matter if you have any CTE programs at all. It doesn't have any application process. And again, there's a few different implementation purposes when we think about these. Traditional programs, they can be implemented for a variety of different reasons. Obviously, both of them help you fulfill the graduation requirements. Senior only credential programs, however, allow you to fulfill those credential or graduation requirements, utilizing credentials in a quick and meaningful way, in a way that if something were to happen and we need to earn these credentials, we know that senior year, we have this program where students can utilize classroom time, can utilize a block of time to solely focus on earning that certification, which can be really, really helpful. Another purpose for this program is that it does receive CTE funding. It does receive supportive funds from the Office of Career Technical Education. And just like the other ones, it really does help you develop employable skills and boost earning potentials. A final note on this senior only credential programs, you might be wondering, well, what's the application process? And the biggest thing is that when you submit an application, it must be for 12 points minimum within the same career field. And that is the biggest thing is that if you're starting a senior only credential program, the likelihood is that you are utilizing this program for graduation requirements. And we have to make sure that this program will help students achieve graduation. Therefore, they have to have the 12 points. They have to be within the same career field. And so that is going to be the biggest thing. If you're looking to start this program and want to know, the biggest thing upcoming for the application is making sure that you identify which credentials in that career field you are going to utilize, and making sure that at the end of the day, they add up to at least 12 points worth of credentials in order to start this program up. And so that is going to conclude my presentation today. It is 9:13. Couldn't have asked for better timing. I still have 17 minutes left for questions. So I'd be happy to answer any and all questions from you all. So please feel free to unmute, throw them in the chat, and we can get started.
Well, Josh, we have one question right now. It says, does the student have to unenroll from their home district, or is it part of a district's programming? And I'm assuming, Ed, that we're talking about the senior-only credentialing for the drop program.
That would be a question for the community school, for our community schools. Lori Wood would be a good contact there. In order to utilize dropout and recovery program, I do believe that they are no longer enrolled in their home school. But again, I don't want to say anything for certain. That would really be a question for our Office of Community Schools that could answer that question. But I do know that they can utilize, and a lot of the dropout and recovery programs do utilize the senior-only credential programs to help them reach those graduation requirements.
So Ed, I see that you're on, and would you like to unmute and maybe clarify?
Yeah, no, I just was trying to figure out, get more information about this dropout recovery program, kind of like where they are and how do students get connected to them and how do we get them started?
You know, the dropout and recovery programs, they are designated community schools that are for students that have left the traditional schools or have, I don't necessarily want to say that they have dropped out of traditional schools, and so they go to these community schools and these designated community schools in order to help fulfill those graduation requirements. So I would, Ed, if you want to share or send me an email, I'd be happy to connect you with the Office of Community Schools that can really answer those questions better for you. And we work closely with them, so I'm sure they could definitely help provide some more clear answers on where they are and how, if you have students that have dropped out or have no longer with your traditional school, that you want to make sure that they get those graduation requirements they can connect you with. So
yeah, thank you. I'll send you an email, reach out. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks.
Josh, hi. Bob Ross from State Sport Team 3. Appreciate your information today. It's great stuff. I had a question about the senior only. So 12 points in a career field, I get that. If I have a school that's looking at like creating a senior only credential class, however, within that class, there might be students earning 12 points in IT, 12 points in, I don't know, let's say hospitality. I'm just kind of riffing here, but would there have to be a separate CTE 26 for the 12-point pathway for each of the clusters?
Yes, there would be. In that application process, we don't look at the instruction time that is being used. We look at the building to make sure that that is a building that utilizes or serves seniors, serves those 12th graders of that status. But it would have to be a different application because if you submitted an application with all of these credentials on one, the comment that you will get from me is, how are you having a student earn all of these credentials within 1 year? And so there does need to be a separate application process.
Thanks, Josh.
Of course.
So Josh, with that explanation, could, if you had 2 CTE 26s filed, one in IT, one in hospitality, could all those seniors be in a class together, working toward those credentials in separate pathways?
Yeah, so we don't do any verification of what classroom they're sitting in at what time and things like that. To my knowledge, the strongest recommendation that I will give, right, is you want to make sure that they have an environment in which they can earn these credentials in a meaningful and successful way. As long as that environment is being set forth, absolutely, right? You can absolutely, because there can be, especially a lot of our IT credentials, they're earned on computers, right? There's a lot of our transportation or, other credentials that are earned on computers, and having them sit next to each other while on computers, not necessarily a wrong deal. I will say this: if a student if part of one credential has to be a lecture and you have other students that are trying to work on different credentials, that learning environment may not necessarily be productive to earning those certifications. So I think the strongest recommendation I would have is making sure that you're setting up a learning environment that is conducive to earning those credentials. But, as far as making sure having them all during one class period or something like that, that's absolutely an option for a district.
That's awesome. And the expectation for creating a CTE 26 for a senior only program is that all those students would be earning 12 points as
Correct.
the potential for an alternative pathway to graduation.
Yes, absolutely.
That is the expectation. However, we know students' abilities vary. Therefore, maybe not all those students would achieve 12 points.
Sure, we're never batting 1,000, but the expectation and the application should demonstrate that a student is expected to earn 12 points within this career field. No one's ever batting 1,000. We absolutely understand that, but the application should be set up so that a student can earn 12 points within that career field.
Another question, is there a timeline from when we can expect an updated IRC list? For example, we've heard a few credentials being approved for 24-25, but we haven't seen the official list yet.
Absolutely. We have our new master list created. I will make sure that gets on the website. So I would say within the next week or two, we'll have a complete master list updated. I'm surprised we haven't posted that yet. Maybe we are actually waiting on a couple of decisions to come down the pipeline, but we have the new list created. It is organized for you all, and so that will be on the list soon, as well as the reimbursement amounts. That's the real thing that was kind of delaying that process, was we had to get all of the new reimbursement amounts, which is a very tedious and long process to make sure we pull all of the different examination reimbursement costs. But it will be updated soon.
So the master list that's been created and will be available soon, within the next week or two. Can you describe the CTE 26 window for those new credentials to our audience?
That is a question that I'm not necessarily the most familiar with. I know that the
I can
senior
help.
the senior only credential program application has closed. So Pam, if you can help, go ahead.
Absolutely. So once the master list is available, the new credentials that have been added that Josh has talked about, you can apply through the CTE 26 process only for the new credentials from July 1 to August 15th. That would be the window for the new IRC credential CTE 26 process. You can also utilize those credentials in the traditional window that opens November 1 and closes March 1st. For those of you that might have applied for a CTE 26 credential only program or a career tech program, those are in the process of being approved right now. And that approval through the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce will occur by May 15th. That's in legislation. So we are currently in a window. That window has closed March 1st. Approvals will happen by May 15th. Then the new credential list will come out. If you're interested in opening a senior only credential program, you can apply beginning July 1 through August 15th. Your career or your tech prep regional centers are responsible for assisting you and tech prep approving those credential programs through August 15th. So again, utilizing the website today, you can find your Tech Prep regional centers. You can also go on the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce Development, Career Tech, and just in the search box, say Tech Prep, and that'll bring you on ODEW's website for Tech Prep regional centers. So we're here to help, as well as your SST members and getting your thoughts together. Josh, you've been great. I'm not sure if Connor's still with us and if he's able to unmute, but either way, we will have Connor's contact information on our website for today's session. The session will be or is being recorded, so you will also be able to go back and re-listen for those of you who are joining us today. For those that may be interested that you know of in your district and not able to join us, again, that recording will be there. If you look in the chat, if you would like a certificate for today's session, you can access that link in the chat, as well as any feedback that you can provide us is greatly appreciated. I'm going to show our website once again so you know how to find us and where you'll find the slide deck, and shortly you will also find the recording. I would be remiss if I didn't thank Melissa Salazzo for her leadership in the virtual web series. So I want to do a shout out to Melissa. And again, Josh, I want to thank you so much for your expertise. I know you're looking forward to helping Connor instead of, facilitating this in addition to your other responsibilities. But I appreciate you being with us. If there's anything else from anyone in the chat, you can reach out to any of us. Again, that contact information is on our website. So I will hang tight for a little bit if you guys think of something at last minute. But in the meantime, thank you, Josh. Welcome, Connor. And thank you all for being here today.
Thank you all so much. It was a pleasure.